talked about, they brought Jill in.
This is Pam Hemphill,
They,
part two.
physically
Both
yanked her
rights.
in, and all she was doing was walking by, stuck her camera up, I think, for a second, and that's it. That's enough to make the thugs mad and make them abuse you. But when Brian was arrested, one of our other area assistants had her kids in the, her kids were in the crowd, and she'd left to go get some lunch. Left the kids on their own. Okay, well, not on their own, there was somebody watching them. But along comes, the blue, whatever you would call blue ISIS, the blue shirt mafia, the puppets of the governor. Okay, along they come, and they're going to show us. They're going to be forceful. And they took one of her daughters, shoves her out of the way, like she's a little rag doll. And that little girl today still gets shuts down as soon as she sees a police officer, and that area assistant doesn't come to the Capitol anymore because she can't take her kids with her, and because her kids are traumatized at the thought of going in there. They're traumatized by having police officers near them because we become victims of thugs and tyrants. Now I still want to hear something about how the family's been affected since this has happened. You got nothing to say?
I can say something.
Yeah, I would like to see, when these people do their things, there's consequences to the whole family. And I think we need to hear, all right, I would like to hear about how the kids are doing and what's going on with the family, since now Aaron's down here every couple whatever, or he's on, trying to seek justice, and in the meantime, he's not spending time with his family. He's stuck with, the Manweilers of the world, deciding, and the Idaho Supreme Court deciding that they will tell us what to do without any legislative process, just purely by dictate and mandate, with no input, no public hearing, no anything. Just, we're going to take this pen, we're going to tell you to do this. That is hereby the law decreed by the Idaho Supreme Court. So.
Okay, so I'm a horrible speaker, but I'll do my best. So I guess I'll just talk about this last time. So we live up in North Idaho, so every time we've had to come down here, we have to drive about 8 hours. So when we came down on March 15th for court, we felt like we were prepared. I mean, you're never fully prepared. I don't even know if lawyers are ever fully prepared. Maybe they are, but we're not lawyers, so we were a little bit nervous, but we felt like we were as prepared as we could be, and we had all of our evidence and all of the work that we've done the past six months, and so we're talking to our kids, and they kind of know what's been going on, but they're just terrified that he's going to get arrested, and so he has to tell them, there's a chance I'll get arrested, because I'm not gonna comply, I'm not gonna wear a mask, and I want my justice in person, and so they were really, they were pretty upset. They started crying, and they were afraid that they didn't know when they were going to see him again, and that sort of thing. And so we drive the 8 hours, and we arrive at the courthouse at I think it was 7:30 or something, pretty early, and of course they don't let us in, and we're there for about 3 hours, and thinking, well, maybe there's a chance they will let us in. Maybe there's a chance. So we have all of our evidence and stuff, and have high hopes that we're going to be let in. At least I did. I had a little bit of a glimmer of hope that they might let him in, because there was people there to support, and I thought, well, maybe they'll find it in their hearts to let us in. And at some point, we kind of realized they're never going to let us in, and sooner or later, Scott Johnson came down and informed these guys that they had warrants for their arrest. And so he gave me a hug, and knowing like, well, I'm gonna go in jail. I don't know how long they're gonna hold me. They said they had a $10,000 bond, which is unheard of for a crime that's $1,000 fine. They have a $10,000 bond. So knowing that they're targeted, there's a lot of thoughts that go through your head, like what are they gonna do to them? We already know what they've done to Ammon in the past. So now what are they gonna do to both of them? They got Ammon. I saw them kind of push Ammon against the wall. And they're always pretty rough with him, because they don't like him very much because he stands up for liberty, and they don't like that. So I saw him do that. And then we're kind of standing a little bit far away, and I saw Aaron start walking towards the police with his hands up. And even though he had his hands up, the officer still grabbed him and kind of shoved him, which, even when you were somewhat surrendering, they still felt the need to do that. And so, seeing that as, being his wife, seeing them treat him like that kind of affects you. And I'll be honest, like, I have like PTSD from a couple of these things that we've been dealing with. And, at first I thought that they pulled him and threw him in a wheelchair because I saw him being wheeled away. And it turns out they just kind of put him in there, but it looked to me like they kind of like threw him. And so I was telling people like, yeah, they grabbed him and threw him in a wheelchair, but that wasn't what happened. But they definitely grabbed him and pulled him. And so after that, they didn't want to be bailed out, which is hard enough. They wanted to see a judge, that's their right. But it is hard because you have family calling you and telling you, why aren't you bailing them out? Don't you care? Why aren't you bailing them out? Why won't you bail them out? And having to explain to them the law and why they want to see a judge because that's their right, and that they don't want anybody to bail them out. So that night I went and stayed at a friend's house because I didn't want to be alone, so I did that. And I didn't know quite what to do. I kind of wanted to go to the jail and just do a sit-in or something. Kind of in protest about what happened, but I'm thinking, okay, I'm gonna go there by myself. That's gonna work out well. So I went to my friend's house and I decided, okay, I'll just call the jail a couple times and just make sure they're okay and make sure they're not torturing them. So I called 2 times, and then they tell me that they've been booked and processed and that they're in a regular cell. So then I call them back again. I'm like, somehow I just don't believe that. So I call them back again and I say, so they're in a regular cell, they're not in a holding cell? Because the holding cells are the cooler cells. Yeah, they're in a regular cell. So okay, well maybe I'll get some sleep tonight. So I went to sleep. Hadn't gotten a phone call all day, from 11 a.m. to whenever I went to bed, like 11 p.m. But I just, I was like, well, maybe there's a possibility they're telling the truth. So I'm just gonna go to sleep and figure out what to do tomorrow. I'll go down there tomorrow. So the next morning, I think it was like 8:30 or 9 a.m. I finally got a call from him, and he said no. He's shaking. I hear him shaking on the other end of the phone, and he said no, I haven't been booked. They haven't done any of that. And then he told me what they had done and that he was cold, and they'd kept him in there all day, and they told him he wasn't going to see a judge unless he wore a mask. And I said, well, did they ever force a mask on you, like when you were in the wheelchair or anything? And he said, no. So I said, oh, okay, so they just want you to submit to it then, because they had never forced one on your face, obviously. So because he would not submit to a mask, he wasn't going to see a judge. They finally gave him a phone call, but they hadn't gave him anything to eat or drink yet. And so, ordinarily, hearing that about someone that you love is hard, and you get pretty mad and upset, and you want to do something about it. And so I, decided to go down to the jail, and the whole way there, I was like, don't yell, don't get mad, don't yell, like even up the stairs. And so I walk in and ask for them somebody to come speak to me. Someone said they spoke with an officer who was actually giving them answers. So I asked for that person, and they wouldn't send them up. So I think when I got there was 3 of us there, and so we started just making signs, and didn't really know how many people were going to show up, but we figured that we'd do what we could, and then more people started showing up. Once we got to about 10, then Scott Johnson came out, and he said, "There's an you guys can't protest here. There's an ordinance that says, there's a county ordinance that says that you can't protest here." And we say, "Well, it's not law. We're exercising our First Amendment. We can do that here if we want." And then I think someone said, "Well, if you don't want us to protest, then stop torturing stop torturing people in there. Stop torturing these men." So then Scott Johnson says, "Let me make you a deal." He says, "Just turn your music down and stop harassing our employees." Well, what do you mean harassing your employees? Telling them what's going on in there? Is that harassing them? And we told them what was going on in there, and he said, "Oh, I'm well aware. I have 500 emails from all across the nation in my inbox right now." And we said, "Well, that's good. They're going to keep coming, until you stop doing what you're doing." And so I just wanted to share how powerful it was, from the first time that he was arrested at the Capitol. We didn't know anybody. We were on the way on a trip, a 3,000-mile trip to the other side of the country, and we just decided we're going to go there because there's some bills we want to testify against, and we said we're just going to stay for Monday. We're just going to testify. We're just going to spend a couple hours there. We're going to testify, and then we're just going to go. It didn't work out that way. So we didn't know anybody. We knew. In fact, we told everybody we weren't even going to go. We just decided at last minute. There were people there from up north that we know, we're friends with, and we didn't even know they were going to be there, so we saw them there. So we didn't know anybody, and everybody just stepping up to just be there for me while he was going through that, because I've never been arrested. He's never been arrested, and so I don't know what to do, I'm all new at it. So having those people there with me at the jail and everything was amazing, and it really showed what people's rights is about and how important it is, even for the person that's not going through what they're going through, for the family. And then this last time everybody's showing up. I think at some point there was around 50 people there, and anyway, that means a lot. And I know that one of the times I was on the phone with him, and he was getting kind of well, I don't know how much longer I can deal with this, what they're doing. And I told him, I just want you to know that there's 50 people out here waiting for you. And he said, "Okay, I can go through it a little longer." So I just wanted to share that how powerful it is.
So that same morning, I went down to the went down to the jail at 6 a.m, and because I couldn't sleep. It was 5 o'clock and I was still stirring in my head, and I said, "Okay, I'm gonna get up. You told me to." I went. So I was there by myself. I got a little video of me trying to question these people. Nothing was open when I was there, and this feller, crossed his court date on top of an arrest, procedure and a jail time thing. You got to schedule your court dates better so that we can be concentrating on people who are in the jail.
What day was that? What day was it like?
So I've got a video on here that said where a guy's sitting there saying, "I have they came out of booking. No, they're not in. Oh, they shouldn't have had to take their clothes off or anything. This is, and just lie. I caught the lieutenant coming out of one door at shift change, and lie. So, anyways, we're going to work back a little bit chronologically from the arrest, go back to mask mandates, and let David talk a little bit about the good times and interesting fun that we've had trying to defend our rights to our bodily freedoms, and and all our attempts to make sure that there were no mask mandates. And mask mandates aren't about a mask, okay? It's about authority and control. Masks, whatever. Okay, so yeah, we know a mask, for 103 years, there's been research on masks, okay? Since the flu pandemic, there's been research on masks, and it's proven a mask does not work against a virus. It's helpful against a bacteria, a very large particle compared to a virus. If the government had ever been serious about this, we would all have N95, charcoal, full face respirators, and that's what they would have issued to everyone instead of, here's this magic rag. I hope it wards the evil spirits off. So, with that, we'll, so David, David's an area assistant too, and he has been, I think the best character at the protests. The one that brings the levity up, while you're having your rights removed, at least David is there to entertain you. So.
Well, I appreciate that introduction, and I have to admit it is kind of difficult to follow Aaron, and it's when he brings that down, and I've mentioned to him before how soft-spoken he is, that it really does touch a whole different, I guess you'd say, demographic than what I'm accustomed to, because I am accustomed to kind of being loud and laughing and, trying to see the light side of things. But, one thing that I did want to start with, and I am going to have to borrow this from Chris Ann Hall for a moment, but I know you guys have been seated for a long time, so if you guys would indulge me for one moment, would everyone in the room just please stand up, and I will stand with you, because I gotta admit, sometimes that blood flow a little bit. And then I'd like you, I don't remember if she did this piece or not, but she probably did, but just take a moment, just kind of look around the room, just kind of get an idea who your neighbors are and who's here. Okay, and then what I would like is everyone in this room that is not part of the FBI, the ATF, DHS, NSA, or the CIA, I would like all of you that are not a federal agent to please sit down. Wow, everyone's still standing. Well, you're in the right one now, anyhow. So, good to see all you federal agents in here with us tonight. So, that was kind of a way that she kept things lighthearted, and she separated the room with the We the People this last summer. So, thanks for that, Chris Ann Hall. So,
Hold on, I'll be right back.
Anyhow, the whole coronavirus thing for me just really supercharged my involvement. I had watched some of the Bundy Ranch stuff, and I know some people here were very closely involved with that, but I watched some of that from a distance, and so I was a non-participant or kind of an online, I wouldn't even say a keyboard warrior yet at that point. I was just someone that was following the news and following kind of the independent news, and I came across that story. And I had been following enough about the Obama administration and what they were doing with our borders and everything that it got me supercharged, that when I saw that, I was like, oh my goodness, I felt at that point, I was like, we've got a revolution coming. And I wasn't totally involved in constitutional circles or liberty circles, live my life, working, have family, the whole bit, but I was following libertarian or conservative Republican news sources. Well, so that kind of got it in my mind of that scenario, and I followed that pretty close. I did not follow the whole court point afterwards, and that's kind of sad to say, but my life just went on. I didn't actually know about the time that Ammon and his family had spent in jail. I may have seen a headline from time to time, and that is really unfortunate. And I think the one thing that all of us will come across is that we all had these arrests, and there was a little bit of news here or there. Not everyone can snap their fingers like Ammon and get national news, but everyone had their arrests, and then everyone forgets because the court process is not exciting. It's boring, it's mundane. Most people are just law-abiding citizens, as I was myself. I hadn't had something, I think it was 25 years I'd had a driving infraction that I had to deal with the police and everything. So it had been forever since I had been involved in that, but I'll try to bring it a little bit, closer to this particular incident is that I got involved with People's Rights and a multitude of other liberty groups in the area, just trying to figure out what was going on and how we could do something to push back. And so we attempted to start going to these Central District Health events, protests. It really started as meetings. Like, we were attempting to go to the meetings, and I know that the Petersons and a handful of other people in here were there consistently. I would say that we probably tried to attend 24 Central District Health meetings, sometimes with a little bit of success, sometimes with less success. The one other thing I was thinking about when these panelists were talking is I was actually with each of these panelists. I mean, not right next to them, but I was with every panelist here when they were arrested. I think I've been with every individual that was arrested except for when Eva was arrested out in Canyon County. And then when Yvonne was arrested at Central District Health, I was at Diana Laciando's house. Hi, Diana. Anyhow, so I mean, if we get a punch card for being present at people's arrests, I think that, you know, my punch card is up. So it was time that they're like, hey, guess what you get? No, not a free cup of coffee or a free donut from Krispy Kreme this morning, but you get arrested. So my punch card was up, and it was my turn. And we didn't go on our property. And if you go back and watch the news on that, it is really the fake news, you know, the opposite of the lies of the Free the Press that we're looking at here tonight. And so what they had said was that an angry mob was banging on her door, and, you know, there's national news stories of women doing the nightly news saying, and in Idaho, an angry mob, you know, rushed the county commissioner's house. And you have to look it up. I don't remember verbatim, but it'll come out in the court process, which probably nobody except for the people in this room will hear about or care about or watch, but it's coming, you know. So anyhow, so my point is that we were three people standing on a public sidewalk making noise, protesting Central District Health because of the level of force that had begun to build at Central District Health. And so those of you that are local here may remember the news on that, is they built that police force segment by segment, squad car by squad car, by SWAT team, by sniper team. And as that thing got to a point and they built those barricades far beyond what they even have at the courthouse right now, we knew that the open meeting laws that no longer pertain to any meetings in the state of Idaho, because of the Attorney General Lawrence Wasden and the Governor Brad Little believing that they can simply strike and edit. And that's why we're saying don't believe any of this stuff with these gun laws that he's making, these edicts and these, you know, whatever, these mandates. They mean nothing. He can just simply strike it away in a moment. We need some legislation which gives us a little bit of something. But anyhow, so he's striking these open meeting laws. We can't get into the meetings. The police forces are not letting us into public buildings, as everyone here can attest to. And so we started thinking up a creative way for our voices to be heard, because we could no longer go in. They wouldn't even allow us to speak in the meetings. Everything had to be submitted ahead of time, and we could sit in the room with a mask on and listen to them literally steal our freedoms. And as we're talking about here, steal our rights. And so we would sit there voiceless while they took our rights away. And it got to the point to where they wanted to not only take our rights away, but now they wanted to start making us the criminals if we didn't do what they were mandating. And so it really, I guess, just kind of came to a head for me when they wanted to start charging us with a misdemeanor, and they wanted to arrest us, and they wanted to fine us, and they wanted to imprison us for decisions that we were making personally on, you know, our own health freedom. And so I wanted to push back. So really what we wanted to do was we wanted to make some noise in front of Diana Laciando's house, and our hopes were that maybe we could hear that through this Zoom broadcast that they would put out, like, hey, maybe we can hear our protests. Like, maybe we can be loud enough that people that are watching, because I remember in North Idaho, one of the meetings, like, someone had got in and they had started scribbling on the screen. And we're like, oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. You know, they got into that meeting and they're scribbling on the screen, you know, and none of the CDH people knew what to do with this. So we're like, well, we could do something. I saw a meeting that Casey did in Northern Idaho where he was beating on the door saying, let us in. And you could hear the echo through the video recording. And I was like, that is so awesome. You can just hear the boom. I was like, boom, boom, boom. boom. I was like, we could do that with something different, because we're out on our public sidewalk. So we were able to make enough noise to not only be heard through the meeting, but we were able to make enough noise that Diana Laciando freaked out, and then Mayor McLean freaked out, and Chief Lee freaked out, and I'll have to prove this through documents through the discovery process, but I believe, and I do want to show a strategy weakness here on Lee, I believe he did dedicate almost all, if not all, of his police force to Central District Health. So when we were near City Hall and the police headquarters protesting, he did not have adequate resources to respond to a 3-person protest on the sidewalk making noise in the city of Boise, Idaho. So, because he put all of his eggs into one basket, and I know you're from Portland, Chief Lee, I know, I understand it. You don't understand how we do things here in Boise. But because you're from Portland and the new ones that she's imported are from, the coast on California, I understand you guys just don't get it yet. You don't understand. But these are strategic things that you might have to, come to understand. But so we did this little protest over there and made a little bit of noise, and it shut the meeting down and made national news because, mainly because of Diana Laciando's response, not because of our protest so much. But, and our intention was not for her to have emotional response. Our intention was for us to be able to hear that throughout. I mean, if we could stop that mandate, awesome. But, our belief and our chances, we didn't necessarily know if we would be successful or not successful. We just, we knew we could be loud, or I believe we could be loud. So then that goes on to, another protest as well. And I should say that People's Rights had joined with Health Freedom Idaho, had joined with Idaho Freedom Foundation, John Birch Society, Liberty Lab. I mean, there's a multitude, Centers for Self-Governance, Real Idaho 3%. I mean, I guess they weren't necessarily as visible, in some of this, but all of these different liberty-minded groups were working together to go ahead and put some type of pushback on the government oppression. And so really, if you go back and look at this stuff and you look at the ones where the snipers are up on the roof and there's those, huge walls of police force, that was a result of us looking for creative ways for our voices to be heard. And so ultimately, it leads me to believe, and the other panelists to believe, is that really what our government doesn't want, what they do not want, is they don't want to hear from you. And that's the reality. They don't want to hear from every person in this room, because every person in this room is standing in the way of $1 billion coming from some mystery world banking system that, I don't know exactly how they do the whole digitization or whatever, but every one of you, I mean, I know it's not necessarily that yet, but I mean, I guess it could be, but we are all standing in the way of $1 billion. And from the government's perspective, if they're looking at you or $1 billion and your rights, you mean nothing. And every one of us can attest to that, because they treat us like we are standing in front of $1 billion for them to put in their pocket. And when you think about that, that's just the reality of it. It's us versus the money. And so, we're trying to find a way to navigate through that. We're trying to find a way to show enough people that we believe that our rights are worth more than $1 billion, because we believe in freedom, we believe in liberty, we believe in this country, and we believe in each other. And, I'm tired of being sold out. So.
So since the Laciando protest, he's also been charged with battery, am I wrong, for the previous week's protest, wherein no battery took place. However, and the video shows no battery took place, but that doesn't prevent us from making charges and telling the media that, hey, these people are getting charged for battery, just because why not? Because they can. And so, have you got a failure to appear now too?
No,
not
yet.
All right. So the others who were arrested at the Laciando, from Eva was arrested before this, and Robert was arrested before this. And they both ended up going to the, Eva's had a failure to appear because Zoom is a kangaroo court. Okay? 3 failure to appear?
I believe 3 failure to appear.
Okay, 3 failure to appear. Okay, so she goes to the court. She says, let me in. And the court says, no. Here, you can Zoom. She looks at it. That's not court. I can tell it's not court. It looks just like a phone or a pad. It's not court. Okay, so, and since she knows that's not court, we don't participate in kangaroo court. And Susan, same thing. This is not court. This is an electronic device with glitches and problems. And, before I know it, I'll have a cat meme on my face, or that maybe you could go in there with a mask filter and pretend, record yourself with the mask filter on. Yeah, look, I got a mask. Look at my phone. It says I do. Okay. So we have a bunch of failure to appears and a bunch of other people arrested as part of the Lasciando, before Lasciando, as part of Central District Health and Southwest District Health protest, just working on defending our rights, claiming, using, defending, and not giving them to the government, just because somebody's pen got hungry for rights. Okay, now we've had Ammon and Aaron going to court, getting arrested for not wearing masks. And meantime, you saw in the video, Casey, the violent offender that he is. Look at that. That is the face of a wanton criminal. Okay? If you want to see violence, it's right there, folks. Right there. You don't know. You don't know what's inside. A man who's, well, let's not disclose his age, but he's a lot older than me. Okay, he could be my dad. So I fear him now that he's a felon, not a felon. Now that he's accused of being a felon and convicted by the court of the media. So, and there are multiple lies going on. But so they're getting arrested for not wearing masks, and now Casey's getting abused. Garth sees the abuse, tries to come to Casey's aid, and I'm going to let them talk about why they were there and how they feel about what's going on with their cases as well. And have you guys got a failure to appear yet?
No.
Okay. Not yet. Okay. Well, it's a coming. So, all right. I'll let and Margie is Casey's wife, and I'd like her to talk a little bit about how much fun and games she's been having during this whole thing as well.
Well, I got to tell you, the first thing I want to say is how proud I am of the People's Rights group that was there on the 15th of March to support Aaron and Ammon. Because as much abuse was forced on us, no one responded violently to the attack that we were in. And I just praise God that we had the patience. Martin Luther would have been proud of us, brothers and sisters.
Yes.
But beyond that, I did submit to a Zoom court on my preliminary hearing.
Tell them about your arrest first.
My what?
Your arrest.
Oh,
Just a little thing.
that little thing, yeah. Well, okay. But when the undersheriff Beck and the officers from the other side of the patio to come assist. A video that I seen shows them coming through in a line, going through to get there. But when I saw what I saw with my naked eyes was a group of about 10 or 12 officers in a ball coming through that group of not protesters, but peacefully assembled supporters, just knocking people and pushing and shoving and when I heard Jan scream, I looked over to the direction of her voice, and I saw her under the elbow officer with her neck in his elbow, dragging her through the crowd by his neck, and she's screaming, "Let me go! You hurt my neck! You hurt my neck!" And before I could respond to that, then I was impacted by I call them a mob of officers, but they weren't really officers because they weren't performing their duty that they swore to uphold the Constitution and protect the people of Idaho from a tyrannical government. They were not performing their duty. They were just a mob of men dressed in Ada County Sheriff's Office uniforms. Anyway, just as I saw Jan's situation, I was impacted by the group of officers, and I was just standing my ground, trying to retain my position because I was there peacefully assembled, and I wasn't doing anything wrong. And my wife was behind me, and we were probably half this distance to the wall, the barrier that was behind us. And when I started getting pushed backwards, my wife put her arms on my shoulder blades and says, "Stop, stop," and pushed me into the wall. And the officer in front of me had me by my forearms and had a leverage advantage. So somehow, God, I don't know how, but he was a pretty big guy. God gave me the strength to break his wrist, and then I grabbed his forearms, and was able to maintain my balance and get my feet under me and hold my balance, and for some reason he stopped pushing. We stood there for a minute, and I let go of his arms, and then the battery started again. And again, somehow in the middle of all of it, I turned to see how my wife was doing. She was right up against the curtain, and on the other side of the curtain, I couldn't tell what it was, if she was going to fall down steps or what. So I turned around again, and somehow I got a hold of his left arm with both of my hands, and he had his left arm up against his chest like this, and my hands on his forearm. And for some reason, whenever I got my hands on his forearms, he seemed to just calm down and stop what he was doing. I had both of my hands on his left forearm, and he looked at me and he says, "Let go of my arm." And I thought, well, last time I let go of you, you started battering me again, so I just he said, "Let go of my arm." And his right arm was free, and he wasn't doing anything with it. And I said, maybe I'll just hang on for a while here. See what happens. Well, the third time he says, "Let go of my arm." I thought, well, he's getting a little irritated. I better let go. So I turned loose and I put my arms in the air in a submissive position. And then other officers around started battering me and shoving me and pulling me by my coat and shirt and whatever. The next thing I knew, I was inside the courthouse on the floor. And I'm not even sure how I got there because I just kind of must have spaced that out. But when they threw me on the floor, I hit my right elbow kind of hard, and it kind of woke me up, and I realized where I was. And I thought, well, I'm just gonna lay here. I'm not gonna move until somebody tells me to, because I didn't want to get any more views. And pretty soon, must have been 30, 40 seconds, seemed like an awful long time. An officer or somebody came up and pat me on my shoulder and says, "You okay?" And I said, "Yeah." And he says, "Can you move your legs?" And I go, "Yeah." He says, "Well, put your feet together." So I put my feet together. He said, "Oh, sorry." And he says, "Can you bring your feet up to your butt?" And I said, "Yeah." So I was kind of laying on my side, and I did that. And then him and another officer grabbed me by my shoulders and lifted me up into a sitting position, and stood me up and walked me over to the wall, put my forehead on the wall, and moved my feet back. And oh, no. Before that, after they got me in the sitting position on the floor, then they asked me to put one of my arms behind my back, which I did, and then he cuffed that wrist and took the other one and cuffed it. And then they stood me up and walked me to the wall and put me against the wall so they could shackle me. Got shackles on me and took me out to the squad car and put me in the car and transported me over to the jail. And which was about 5-minute, 3-minute drive, and got out over there and went into to book me. And then they gave me a piece of paper that was supposed to have been a warrant, but it wasn't because it didn't have any first appearance clause on it, and no judge's signature, and my name was spelled wrong, and there's just a lot of things wrong with that piece of paper. But that's what they told me was I had 2 warrants for battery on an officer and a misdemeanor, 2 felonies for battery on an officer and a misdemeanor for obstructing and didn't have a resisting, but obstructing an officer in the performance of his duties, which they weren't performing their duties that they swore to. They were abusing us instead of protecting our rights. So anyway, got booked. Then they took me in. I had to change into prison clothes, and then the officer, he says, the people at the desk would really appreciate if you'd wear a mask just while you're booking. Once you get through booking process, you can take the mask off. And I thought, well, is that a battle I really want to fight right now? And I thought, well, I don't know, Ammon and Aaron, or I don't know if that's a battle they should pick either, you know. And I kind of questioned in my mind. I thought it over, and I thought, just for booking, I can do it just for booking. So unfortunately, I submitted to a mask long enough to get booked. And my picture then they took it off, so they take my picture and stuff. So.
Oh, now they
Yeah, now they don't see my face. Yeah. So anyway, I got booked, and then from here on, my conscience really started to bother me. They ended up putting me on the medical wing because I have injury-induced Parkinson's from a traumatic brain injury I had in '98, and I have to have medication, so they put me on the medical wing. Got to the medical wing and put me in a cell. 2 steel platforms, one on each side of the room for beds, and a sink and a shower. And they left me there for maybe 15 minutes. And I was tired, so I was laying on one of the platforms, and they brought me a mattress, 2 sheets, and 2 blankets. I have a bottom sheet, top sheet, and a blanket, 2 blankets. And so I made up my bed and used one of the blankets to keep warm and one of them for a pillow, and I laid down to sleep. And then they brought me dinner about, they took my medication when I was being booked. They took all my personal belongings and stuff, like they usually do. And I told them, when I got to the medical unit, I told them I was due for medication because I hadn't, what time was it when I got there? I don't know, about 3? Oh yeah, I took a medication at 12:30, and I told them I was going to be due for another one about 5 because I take them out about 4.5 to 5 hours. I'd had one at 12:30. So then they said, okay. Well, 5:30, 6 o'clock came. I could look out my cell window and I could see the clock over in the officer's station, so I always knew what time it was. And when I start shaking, then I know I need a med. And I called him and got the officer's attention, told him I needed my medication. He went and told the nurse, and the nurse came back and says, well, I need to see the bottle before you can have your medication. Make sure I'm giving you the right thing. And I'm supposed to have it 5 times a day. And so he called my wife and I said, honey, could you bring the bottle in so they could see, they need to see the bottle before they let me have my medication, even though it's self-administered. So thereon, I was just kind of winging it and praying that Lord give me strength and to get through this. And she, about 9 o'clock came around, and I thought, man, I'm really hurting. I need medication pretty bad. So I called and asked for a phone, called my wife again. She said, oh, I've been so busy taking care of things because we co-parent grandchildren and stuff, and she's got a lot of responsibilities. She's a hard-working woman. She takes good care of me too. Bless her little soul. But anyway, she said, I'll bring it right now. So she brought it in. She had it there by 10 o'clock, and by 11:30, they finally gave me another med. So, but anyway, when I take my meds, I usually drink a lot of water with it, and then I drink water afterwards because then it acts like a diuretic. So I'm back and forth to the restroom several times. but fortunately I had a restroom in my cell. And so I was laying on, trying to sleep, and laying there at about 1:30, the officer woke me up and he brought in a 3-inch vinyl covered foam pad to go under my mattress that they'd given me, which is just a little thin pad thing. And I thought, well, that's really nice, I appreciate that. And he helped me put it under my mattress and left the room, and I laid down. Well, that was a lot more comfortable. And then about an hour and a half later, he comes back again. He says, the sheriff's concerned you're going to fall out of your bed and hit your head or hurt yourself. So he brought you another mattress to put beside your bed. And I thought, this is unbelievable. Why are they being so nice to me? And then I thought, oh, it's because I wore that mask probably. And then my conscience really started burning me. I thought, I should send these I wish I could send these mattresses to Aaron and Amy. Anyway, about 5 o'clock in the morning, they served breakfast, and then it was a pretty, not too bad a breakfast. It was a couple pancakes, butter and syrup, and a bowl of cold cereal with a little carton of milk, which filled me up for a breakfast. And during the night when my wife brought my medication in, she brought me some apples, because apples really help me get through when I'm having a hard time. And I asked for an apple, and they brought me one. So anyway, got through the morning. And about noon, they told me that I had to get ready for Zoom court at 1 or 1:30. And about 1 o'clock, the IT tech came in. The officer brought an IT tech into my room and she asked me if I'd put a mask on for this Zoom court thing. And I said, what's a Zoom court? What do I need a mask for? So she sat up and stayed away from me. And I stayed away from her and got the Zoom thing going. And the judge was wearing a mask. And I'm going, appeared to be in a courtroom because there's paneled walls and the flags behind him and stuff. But I couldn't really tell what judge it was because I couldn't see his face because he had a mask on. And I'm thinking in my head, you know how to ask this judge if COVID had gone viral, because I didn't know digital. If COVID gone digital, I didn't know you could catch it over a Zoom chat. But I thought better of saying that, and I thought I'd better just shut my mouth and behave myself. So anyway, we got through that and got rescheduled for a preliminary. That was my first appearance after my warrant. You're supposed to get your first appearance, and then I was scheduled for my preliminary hearing on the 29th, right? Yeah.
First, you talk about your bail. Remember what she said?
Oh yeah, and during my preliminary hearing, my initial appearance, the prosecuting attorney read me my charges and told me what they incurred, what could be the maximum penalty. Could be 5 years and $1,000 or $5,000. Some large amount of money for each felony, plus so many years and whatever for the misdemeanor. And she said they could pile those on top of each other, so you could be in jail for 10 to 15 years. And anyway, then she looked at the judge. She says, he's a part of that people's rights group that Eamon and Aaron are heads of. He needs the same bail as they have for $10,000. And I thought, the judge looked over at me and he says, I don't want you to talk about your case because I don't want you to incriminate yourself, but please tell me what you would think would be a fair bail and why. So I told him that my wife and I have close ties, a lot of family ties here in the valley, and we're co-parenting our grandchildren with their parents, and we share an apartment together. And we've been coming to Boise from Nampa all year long in 2020 for 10 legislature sessions and testifying committee meetings concerning bills and stuff. And it's not a problem for me to come to Boise to attend my court dates, and I promised that I would sure be there. And he said, okay. And he looked down and wrote some things down, and then he says, released on ROR, released on owner recognizance. And I thanked him. I said, thank you for your mercy, Judge. And he said, goodbye. And that was it. So then on the 29th, we show up at the Ada County Courthouse. It was supposed to have an 8:30 in the morning trial time, or preliminary hearing time, I guess that's what it was, yeah. And we get there about 8:15, and we go up to the officers on the porch that won't let us in because we won't have a mask. And says, well, we can do Zoom. And I said, that'd be all right, but can I sit on that barrier right there? And he said, oh, I'll get you a chair. So he went in and got a chair and set it over in the corner, kind of out of the wind, but it was still, it was like 33 degrees that morning. It wasn't quite freezing, but it was snowing. Just not really snowing hard, but spitting snow out once in a while. But it was that cold wind. So we sat there, and he says, well, your trial's been changed till 9:30 because you've been released. He said that you do the inmates first at 8:30 and then the rest of you at 9:30. And I said, oh, okay, can you give me some paperwork on that? So he went into the office and got the paperwork and brought it out, so we had it. So we decided to go sit back in the car, and Brian happened to be there with us that morning. And we went and sat back in the car to keep warm until trial time, and Brian came and visited with us and stuff, and actually interviewed me while we were sitting in the car, which is kind of fun. Kind of enjoyed that, being able to visit, kind of somebody to vent to, you know. So anyway, we come back over to the court about 9:30, and he brought me out a Zoom thing, a pad or whatever they call it. I'm not a nerd at all. I'm very much opposite of a nerd.
No, he's just a brute.
But anyway, so anyway, we sat there at from 9:30 until about 10:50. They finally called my name, and then we got on the Zoom, and about 5 minutes in, we started having technical difficulties. We couldn't hear each other, and it was breaking up real bad. And she says, well, I'm gonna take on some other cases until they get this technology straightened out, and then we'll come back to you. And I said, okay, that'll be all right. So she starts taking other cases, and we're sitting there waiting until, what?
We were there, before they actually took you, it was probably 3 hours. I think,
Yeah.
I would say 3 hours.
It was at least 2.5 hours. Yeah.
It was about 3 hours.
So we waited another hour before they finally came back to me, and then we still had the problems. And so they said, well, can we do it over the phone? If they bring you a phone, can we just talk over the phone? We'll at least be able to hear each other. So they brought me a phone, and I talked to somebody over the phone. I don't know if it was a judge or who it was, but I talked to somebody over the phone. We got through it, and they decided to reschedule my initial appearance until my preliminary hearing until it was May 5th, wasn't it? Yeah.
May 3rd. No.
No, it was April. It was April 5th.
April 5th.
Yeah, because that was the 29th, and then they rescheduled me to April 5th. So we went back April 5th to the preliminary hearing.
Another one.
And we did another Zoom thing, which this time at least they set me in a bench out in the patio. It was right out in the wind again, cold wind, and waiting for it. And then when we got on that one went pretty smooth, didn't it? Once we got going on it,
We were in and out of there.
we were in and out of there, and finally got that preliminary hearing taken care of, and they set my pre-trial hearing for May 3rd. At that preliminary hearing, I had requested an extension because I'd just gotten my discovery Friday, and this was Monday morning. I just got my discovery Friday, and I told the judge I needed more time because I just got my discovery Friday, late Friday. And he said, well, how much time do you need? And my wife looks over and goes, 30 days. I go, okay, that sounds good. So I said 30 days, and he talked to the prosecutor attorney. He said that would be okay with him. So now I'm scheduled for my preliminary hearing on May 3rd. Because that was April 5th, so that would be May 3rd, because it ended up only being 28 days instead of 30, which was good enough for me. So that's where we're at in that. You got anything you want to say,
And that's what we call speedy trial, speedy due process, speedy whatever. What do we got? 180 days is what this speedy limit is.
A long time for
Yeah, it's a long time for any state to be 180 days, and we're just going to keep pushing it out now. We'll let Maggie, Margie talk for a sec, and co-parenting grandkids in the middle of all this? Are you kidding me?
I've been for 4 years, no, 8 years.
He's only 7.
Oh, that's right.
I did want to say one thing, Casey forgot to mention, because he was pretty adamant that the judge come out and talk to him. He says, well, you're in there without a mask. Why can't I go in there and without a mask and talk to you? And then she, well, I don't know. I don't think I can do that. And then
I promised her I'd stay 10 feet from her. I promised her I'd stay 10 feet from her. That was my first preliminary hearing.
And then he goes, well then, you come out here, and you come out and talk to me. And he says, and then we won't have this technical issues, and she wouldn't have it, so she was rescheduled for his preliminary hearing.
Well, I gotta go.
Yeah, Garth was there, so he knows, he heard everything. But one thing that I want to say is that back, let's see, before August, I was sick and tired. I mean, March is when the governor exclaimed this emergency thing, whatever, and I was like, okay, must be some kind of emergency. I've never been through anything like that. But then by June, I was sick and tired of it. I was actually getting depressed. I was so upset about it because you can't, well, first of all, we lost our businesses. We had 3 businesses. We lost them all. And I was like, this is crazy. Well, March through June, you can lose a lot of stuff, and I'm not talking about stuff. I'm talking about like just having morale. You're thinking, what's going on? This is not right. And then on Facebook, I'm talking to my family, right? I do a lot of communication with my family because we can't travel. You can't go anywhere. You can't meet with 10 people. It's crazy, right? So I had Facebook at least to talk to my sisters and family and things. And I see people's rights on Facebook. And I get to reading what people's rights is all about. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna sign my husband and I for that people's rights thing. Oh, absolutely. I said, this is what we gotta do. I said, Lord, I know there's something really wrong with how this whole COVID thing is going out, right? And I said, no, it's just getting crazy. And so we joined, and I told my husband, guess what, honey, they're gonna have a special, they were gonna try to do a June special session, right? It didn't happen because there was only 15 legislators that showed up. You have to have 35 legislators show up. So then in August, they had it, right? I was like, oh, honey, we gotta go testify against this, immunity. The governor's seeking immunity. I said, he needs to be found as a criminal, killing people and just, and when I say killing people, I mean like telling the people you're banned from hydrochloroquine, you're banned from this and that, and I was like, no, this is wrong. I felt something in my heart that was wrong, right? And at this point in time, we had not really, and I'm really ashamed to say this, but I did not know the Constitution. I really didn't, and we were complacent, and we did not know all the bad stuff that was going on before all this came about. So I know personally I'm very ashamed. But then we went and we seen the atrocities that happened at the Capitol with Aaron, Ammon, Jill. I remember Jill, and I was like, and with many other the women, Bailey, Brian, Misty, and I was just standing up and I was yelling, freedom, liberty. I'm so upset, and my husband's trying to calm me. He's sitting there kind of like scared, and I'm scared too, but I'm more upset than scared. Okay, so that happened. And then I said, honey, we need to be more involved. And he goes, no, we can't be involved in politics. No. I'm not talking about politics, honey. I'm talking about people's rights. I'm talking about standing up for our rights, defending our rights. Oh, and he was struggling with that, right? Because we belong to a church that really don't think about political, we shouldn't be involved in politics. And I agree, but I said, this is different, honey, this is really different. And so I want to read something, and then this is the last thing I'm going to say, because I think what I'm going to read is going to have a huge impact on many of us, because this was written 176 years ago from a woman that I have a lot of respect for. Reading her biography, reading about many of her books. I think she wrote how many books, honey?
30-some books, translated into over 150 languages.
So,
This is Pam Hempel. I'm going to have to end this
Wrote a
video.
lot of books, child guidance,
so
messages to young people, and
apparently,
things like that. But I want
I
to
guess
this.
Garth is the last person to talk.
Already, the
He has been
question
arrested.
of an amendment to the Constitution restricting liberty of conscience
At
has
the
been
time that
urged
Bundy refused to
upon
put a
the
mask on,
legislators of the nation.
so he
The
got
question of
arrested too.
enforcing Sunday observance has become one of national interest and importance. We will know what the result of this movement will be.
Garth is the one with the
Ready
hat
for
on
the issue.
there.
Have we
Little
faithfully
blue hat.
discharged the duty which
And,
God has
I'll do
committed
a
to us
separate
of
interview
giving
with
the
him.
people
God
warning
bless
in the
you. God
age
bless
before them?
America.
It is our duty as we see the